In Sermon 1 of Nahjul Balagah, we first draw attention to the idea that no one can figure out divinity. No one can enumerate how the divine qualities are in total. In the second part of the sermon, we have the reminder of the opening for the spiritual beings in the heavens of the physical universe. In the third part, we are reminded about how the creation of this physical universe was in stages. And some of this is clarified for the sake of our guidance towards what we should do. One of these things is the pilgrimage, in which we are forgiven for all our sins if we fulfill its obligations. And it was recited the air pollution is quite high today, so excuse any mess with that. And Baka is the old name which the Egyptians and the Israelites and the Tibetans and some other cultures knew Mecca by. But these obligations and pilgrimage and stuff are only as far as we are able to. In the first letter, he wrote the people of Kufa during the time of the march from Medina to Basra. And he reminded them that he was the foremost of the supporters and chiefs of those of the people who speak Arabic. And he was concerned regarding what had happened to Uthman. And of course, he praised their character about how firm it was, even when the action was relatively soft, and how there were issues that led to the situation there. And that people weren't fleeing to Kufa because they were because of denial about how important Medina and Mecca were. It was that there was turmoil, and they were fleeing towards the embracing of the Islamic State. And the Islamic State is not something that is supposed to be by force. It's to be a consensual rule of the people. And in the first saying of Ali, we're reminded of the political turmoil that we tend to face in this day and age. And one of the best things is not to be somebody who will be used. The likeness is drawn to a juvenile camel. So you're there, but, one of the things that got people upset at Uthman was an incident where he took out a pair of shoes and a shirt that Muhammad had had. And he was pointing out, hey, these things haven't even decayed yet, and you are changing the religion. And some people certainly were. And by changing the religion, of course, I don't mean that people use new terms or something like that and extended their philosophizing on it. But yeah, some things were changing. Let us remember that as much as voluntary or recommended things are good, they're not required. So build up in doing them, but understand that they are not required, and don't burn yourself out accordingly. And let us remember that those who are able to do things might be judged differently than those who can't do things. But those who do extra and those who do as they should, they're obviously better off. The people who have issues with Islam and say, oh, it's miserable and they don't, whatever, they're the ones that it takes them half an hour to say a prayer, that they only stand up for 2 minutes languidly, and it's like, you approach it with joy, and and then the easiness comes. And so some will say that we look at things in stages. And so we believe in the essence, but we don't know but we know by qualities. But we have a limited idea of the qualities. And that's one of the great things about Islam, is it doesn't, as time goes on, supposedly get more advanced or something. It's, it doesn't have to be updated to, because it already is self-updating in that respect. But one is supposed to testify after figuring out these things. And we're supposed to achieve different knowledge. And we're supposed to arrange that knowledge. We're supposed to express it. But of course, primarily is the as prescribed. And all these things in the universe are means, but things don't always require the means that we may think they do. But living out certain attributes in our human way is, of course, part of our way.